Something interesting is happening in the San Rafael housing market right now. Some homes are sitting on the market for months and others are selling quickly, sometimes with multiple offers. And in a few cases, homes that failed to sell last year have come back to the market and are now successfully selling. This is my March 2026 San Rafael real estate market update, where I break down the latest housing trends and what buyers and sellers should know right now. What we're seeing right now is what I would call a two-speed housing market. And in this update, I'm going to walk through the latest numbers and explain what they mean for buyers and sellers here in San Rafael. Let's start with inventory, because supply drives everything in real estate. At the end of February, there were 76 homes for sale in San Rafael. It's about 19% fewer homes than we had at the same time last year. So despite national headlines about inventory increasing, locally we are still dealing with a very limited housing supply. New listings tell an even stronger story. In February, there were just 31 new listings, which is down more than 48% compared to February of last year. That's a massive drop in new supply entering the market. A big reason for this is many homeowners are still holding on to very low interest rates and choosing not to move unless they absolutely need to. Now let's look at buyer demand, because this is where things get really interesting. In February, 52 homes sold in San Rafael. That's about 40% more than the previous month. But the year-over-year comparison is even more dramatic. Sales were up 136% compared to February of last year. Pending sales, that's homes going into contract, were also strong. They were up nearly 72% compared to last year. So the data clearly shows that buyers are stepping back into the market. And that matches what we're seeing locally. There are a lot of buyers who have been watching and waiting quietly on the sidelines. But when the right home hits the market, they are moving quickly. Now let's talk about pricing, because the story here is a little bit more nuanced. The average sold price in February was about $1.4 million. That's roughly 26% higher than January and about 12% higher than February of last year. The price per square foot also moved higher month to month. It increased about 17% compared to January, but it's still slightly below where it was a year ago. And that's pretty common in Marin County. Monthly averages can move around depending on the mix of homes that sell. One luxury property or one smaller home can shift the averages. Another important signal in this market is how homes are selling relative to their asking price. Right now, homes are selling for about 99% of their original list price on average. So while we are still seeing competition, the market is a little bit more price sensitive than it was during peak frenzied years. The days on market also improved slightly. The average dropped from 83 days in January to about 74 days in February, and homes going under contract this month are moving even faster than that. Now let's come back to this idea of the two-speed market. Right now, San Rafael homes are performing very differently depending on pricing and preparation. Some properties are sitting on the market for extended periods of time. In many cases, those homes are either priced too aggressively, need updating, or sometimes a combination of both. At the same time, well-priced and well-prepared homes are selling quickly, often with strong buyer interest. One interesting trend we've seen recently is homes that were on the market last year and didn't sell. Now, some of those homes have come back to the market this year, sometimes even at higher prices than last year, and they're now successfully closing. That tells you something important about the current market. Buyer demand is still very real, but also raises an important question: how much of this strength is driven by true buyer demand, and how much is simply the result of very limited inventory? And that brings us to one of the most important metrics in real estate: months of inventory. Right now, San Rafael has about 1.5 months of inventory. For some context, a balanced housing market typically has 4 to 6 months of inventory. So anything below 3 months is typically considered a strong seller's market. So even though some homes are sitting longer, the overall market is still very supply constrained. If inventory rises later this year, the market dynamics could shift somewhat, but for now, supply remains tight. So what does all of this mean if you're thinking about buying or selling in San Rafael? For sellers, the takeaway is pretty clear. Pricing and preparation matter more than ever. Homes that hit the market in great condition and are priced correctly are still performing very well. For buyers, opportunities do exist. The market is not quite as frenzied as it was a few years ago, but the best homes are still moving quickly. If you're curious about what these trends mean for your home or your neighborhood, feel free to reach out. Every part of San Rafael behaves a little bit differently. And if you'd like to stay updated on the San Rafael housing market, make sure to subscribe to the channel because I post updates like this every month. And of course, if you're interested in buying or selling in San Rafael, feel free to reach out.